Right. Hi, everyone. We're going to talk about TMA 2 today. It's going to be very practice-based for those who are done their problem statements or who feel confident with them. Now, you might be going into sketching or prototyping, and you might not be sure where you want to start. So instead of being a little bit confused, I'm just going to show you exactly what I would do, and then maybe that'll help you break the ice. So we're going to take a problem statement, or we're going to take a topic. You can take anything, really. You all have your problem statements. I'm going to take a toothbrush for this exercise. And I'm going to talk about the fact that people with fine motor skills or with bad hand-eye coordination might not be able to brush their teeth as well as they could. So my problem statement will focus on those people and what a toothbrush does. So it keeps your mouth clean. So I might think about how might we, that'll be the start of my problem statement. So how might we ensure that people with poor hand-eye coordination or a lack of fine motor skills are able to keep their mouth clean on their own on a daily basis. So the point of that is we didn't talk about a toothbrush, and that gives me the chance to look at all sorts of different things, but we still focus on the fact that the outcome is they have a clean mouth. So it may end up looking at like a toothbrush anyways. Next from there, obvious thing to do is start looking at like what the issues are. So you'll talk to people, you'll figure out how to use a toothbrush. One of the things that I did for the next step is start taking pictures of myself or videos of myself, and then you can do that with other people as well, since this TMA is all about other people, helping and learning with others. So you might look at how you hold a toothbrush, how you brush with it, how other people brush with it. You might know someone who has hasn't fully developed their motor skills. Maybe it'll be young children, so you might look at how kids brush their teeth, and then from there you'll start thinking about what kind of elements that you need to improve on that. What are the issues, and then that'll lead you to some maybe market research. You might look at things, instead of holding a toothbrush like this because they're not able to have that like mobility, then maybe it's about having something that's a bit more robust. Just offhand thinking about a mug, you have a bigger grip on it, maybe the surface area is what will help us. Or it might be something else entirely. So you'll start looking at those things. The first things that come to mind, maybe when it comes to keeping something clean or grooming, is the idea of curry combs or hard brushes with horseback riding. So the way that the shapes that you use is all a very circular motion with these big shapes, and you're holding it in your hand in like full size, and then thinking about how maybe I could scale that down to the size of a child's hand. Or it might be about looking at people with Parkinson's and looking at some of the utensils that they use, and there'll be vibration dampeners on those. So having all of those references around is really good, and it's an excellent start because it gives you an idea of what is available, what does exist, and then maybe how you can mix those things together to make a good solution. So from there, the next step is to start drawing, obviously. Now we're going to look at how I went from the idea in my mind to something like this. Now don't be afraid, we're going to do each step one at a time, so it's all quite easy, and then you have all of these beautiful clean references that you can take a photo of, that you have as guidelines for the next steps when you do decide to start prototyping, or when you do the entire process from A to Z and present it to someone. So the first thing we're going to do, now I'm going to bring this down actually so we can see like this. Now the first thing we're going to do is see how there's a hand there. Instead of trying to draw the hand every single time, I've actually taken a photo of my hand, and I'll put it just on the screen here. I don't have a printer, so I didn't have the ability to print it out, but then the best thing to do is, let's say you have your hand printed out as an image, then instead of trying to draw it every single time, you actually just trace it over. So we're going to put our image underneath the original image that has all the right proportions, it has all the right shapes. I don't even need to think about how to keep those proportions clean, and I'm going to take a very light pencil. So I'm just going to take, this is a 2H pencil, and I'm just going to lightly go over the entire overall shape of the hand and the toothbrush, so I have a good idea of what shapes are where. So I'm going to do that, and this is all really quick, so I'm just doing that, and then I'm putting in the toothbrush that has a shape like that. So it's really, really light. You can barely see it. It's just on there as an idea. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to give it that professional touch. And one of those tricks is actually just to use a banner around the image. It really frames it well and it gives it, sort of a certainty, a confidence. So we're going to do that with just a regular, permanent marker. I've got some specialized ones just because I'm a bit of a knob, but you know how it is. So this is a Winsor Newton Pro marker, but you can use a Sharpie, you can use anything that's a thick line. You can even use a pen, if you're in a pinch. And when you do make the image or make the frames and use permanent markers, make sure that, because it bleeds, to have a surface underneath, so something that you're not afraid to get dirty because you don't want to ruin your table. That's just a little bit of a tip. So we're going to frame around this really quick and easy, looking down, making straight lines, but just confident straight line. Don't worry about it, do it fast. And the trick to a straight line isn't about looking where your pencil is going, but we're looking where you want to go. So when I'm drawing this line, I'm not actually looking at each individual point. I'm actually looking at the end point, and that's where I want to go. So I go like this, and then I go down, and then you get a relatively straight line. It doesn't need to be perfect because these are just sketches, and it's just giving you a general idea. So now that I've got this sketch here, I've got the frame, I'm going to start thinking about how I want to change this toothbrush. So in this example, I called this one the wobble toothbrush because it has the idea that the head of it is actually a little bit flexible, so it can accommodate sort of some of the tremors or some of the, reduces the risk of injury for someone who may not have the best motor skills when they are working around their mouth, so that gives it a bit of a dampener. Now one of the things I'm going to do is I have a lighter marker that I'm going to use. You can also use a darker pencil, it doesn't really matter. And I just want to start doing some of the shapes that I'm really happy with. So obviously I'm going to go around the hand just to emphasize some things. I'm going to put some knuckles on it. I'm going to give it a little bit of roundness. So that's just part of one of the stages of doing that, so that you have a clear image of the elements that are important to this design. Obviously, as we've talked about, you need to have that human touch to it. It's really, really important to be able to have a reference about the sizes of things. Next, I know that everything is going to happen over here, so I'm a little bit hesitant about what I want to do with this marker right now. So instead, I'm going to go back to my little 2H pencil, and I'm just going to draw some cuts in it that are kind of like an accordion, because that's sort of the idea that I want to do. And then I realized that I don't quite have enough room to do the accordion and for it to make sense with what's going on, so I'm just going to extend the toothbrush a bit more. And then that's super easy because I've just used a tiny little pencil and I haven't used a marker, so I've extended it out. It's not the cleanest thing right now, and that doesn't matter because it's just about getting those general ideas on the paper first. Now I think I know where I want to go with it. I'm going to start putting emphasis on the things that are important. So for me, that's the accordion that goes in the middle, and then obviously I want to have a general idea of this toothbrush. So I'm going to put the arm in, and then I'm just going to spend a little bit more time on that. Then I'm going to go back with my darker marker that I had, and I'm actually going to put a bit more emphasis on the accordion shape. I just want to give it sort of the idea of shading. And when I say shading, don't be intimidated by that. Really just a couple strokes on the bottom of it to really put emphasis on the fact that it is sort of ribbed like a saxophone. So I'm going to put a little bit of that, a little bit of emphasis. Good, that's it, we're done. Next, I'm going to put in, so as we see here, I want to explain that it is flexing, right? So I want to show some shapes. So I've put in these little arrows, and there's some arrows here, arrows there to say that it moves around. There's some arrows that go up and down. So I'm going to do that again, but this time I think I want to be a bit more clear about what that means. So I'm going to put the arrow behind the toothbrush head. So I'm going to go to my drawing. I'm going to draw, some light lines, and I'm going to make an arrow. Now, I'm rather pleased with the shape of that. I think that that makes sense. It shows that it's going, up and down. But I still want to give it that idea of flex. So I'm going to put emphasis again. I'm just going to make a little semicircle. So to start the arrows, I've just done this little curve, and I made sure that the lines are sort of, the same width to make it look pretty. Then the lines of the arrow line up. So they're doing that, they're in a perfect line, and then I'm just meeting them around the middle of where that tube is. So dun da da, dun da da, and I'm doing the same thing on the other side. Just like that. Now I feel like that might be enough so that people can understand that it does do sort of a wobbling shape. Next, I'm going to go with my pen and I'm going to make the more confident lines. So as you can see, I didn't try to work on a perfect line. I didn't try to get it right the first time. I just started looking around and exploring by putting 1 or 2 lines, and then I know from that which ones are the right ones to use. So I'm going to go with my pen now to put emphasis on the different things that I really want to focus on. One of which is obviously the little accordion shape. So I'm going to just outline those things again to put a little bit more emphasis on them. So something just like that. So it's just created a bit more, dynamism. And then I'm just going to very quickly do the rest of the shapes because I don't want a ton of focus on it and I don't want a ton of, ink or attention to it. So I'm just doing it really, really fast to be able to say, obviously this is a toothbrush. These are the things you need to be looking at when it comes to the design of my toothbrush. So just some very, very, simple shapes and lines. And then I'm going to do very quickly just over the hand again, just to remind people about the shape of the hand and how that's actually an important element. It's not just the design, but it's about how it's being held and who's holding it. And then I'm going to do the lines that I liked out of this arrow, just like that. And out of this one, I'm going to make sure that because I wanted to do it in the background, I wanted to do it sort of behind the toothbrush. So I'm not going to draw over the toothbrush, obviously, so that focus can still be on the toothbrush itself. So I've done just like that. So we have the shape, we have the overall, idea. And then there's some recommendations. So I'm going to put in the points that I think are important with this design, one of which is that it flexes with movement. So I'm going to put that in the comments here. Flexes with movement. Then I also want to add that it reduces the risk of injury. And then also I'm going to put a little caution mark. So a little attention, because that's something that I want to remember to look, which finger is that? That one here. So it's just something that I want to keep in mind. So I want to think about the materials because, as we design things, toothbrushes often have this notorious reputation of being just a throwaway thing. So I want to keep that in mind when I am doing the design. But that's a lot of things to think about right now. So I don't want to overexert myself with the design of this. This is just the overall shape and some of the ideas that I have, a focus on the user, a focus on the toothbrush itself. It's not about the materials because I can't really illustrate that right now. And then I also, because I used this very general shape and I used a photo of myself holding a toothbrush very confidently, then, I didn't really address the arm of the toothbrush for, ergonomics. So that's something that I do need to consider later. So maybe, this element, the wobbly part or the flexy part is something to look at in this design, but then in another design, I may look at the overall hand shape and then combine these later. So I didn't address that. And then I also will just give myself a couple comments. One of them is that maybe, when I do the prototype of this, because I do like it, so I'll think that maybe, I can test it. I'm going to have to break this toothbrush. I'm going to have to get a toothbrush. I'm going to have to break it. And then maybe I can use something like tape or even a bendy straw to give myself sort of an imitation of this. It might also be about replacing all of this section with Play-Doh and then taping it up so it does have a bit of flexibility. And then that's how I can test it. So I'll just say, test with bendy straw or tape, and then get a spare toothbrush. And then also, I might want to validate this with a user, which means that you may have a user on hand. If we are thinking about a child, then maybe you have a cousin and she's 5 years old and her name is Sarah and you're seeing her this weekend. So then you'll just put a note that you want to test with Sarah. And then, of course, the final touch of this is, you want to add a couple comments here and there. You want to say that, this is the same classic toothbrush design. And then that, you know, you've kept the same hand shape. And then, of course, final point, I'm going to title this, I'm going to give this, you know, a denominator, something to really help it stand out when I do have loads and loads of these sketches all sprawled across the bed or the table or the floor. And I'm going to call this one the saxophone toothbrush. No, not the saxophone, the accordion toothbrush. Fool. Accordion toothbrush. So then that can help me make sense of, you know, what it is and where it is in my designs. So just like that, we've gone from, you know, nothing to a design. It looks quite professional. It looks quite clean. Obviously, I haven't put all the words in because I didn't want to waste time, but it did look a little bit more something like this. And then from there, you can do another sketch. You can do another, you know, idea. You can generate all these different concepts and you can keep them all side by side and they look nice and clean and they have nice titles and they have all the comments that you might need for, you know, note taking. That's basically what you're doing with this. You're prototyping, you're taking notes, you're designing ideas, and then you're gonna eventually blend them together to, you know, find a solution. So that's it. That's the steps that I would take. Keep those in mind. You know, the biggest tricks and the biggest time savers are to take photos as references, print them out or put them on the screen and then trace them out instead of trying to draw a hand, instead of trying to draw the perfect proportions. Just find that image of whatever it is online, or if you have them at home, you know, like if you're looking at mugs, then take a photo of a mug and then put it down, you know, like print it out or put it on the screen, take a shot of it as you're holding it, or, you know, to have all of those proportions. So it's super easy and it becomes second nature. You know, after you've done maybe 10 or 20 of the same sort of design or general idea of a hand or a sketch or a face or whatever it may be, it starts to become second nature. And that's what, you know, those skills, that's how you develop those skills. And that's what's really important. Instead of trying to perfectly figure it out or spend, you know, too much time on something, just hash it out, get it done, find all these tricks, you know, use tracing paper, copy over things, use thick lines, use the same sheet of paper, and then, you know, we started with the 2H, we went to the gray pencils, we went to the pens, we went to the dark markers, we went to the light markers, and then if you do feel, you know, here, I thought it was a bit too close and I had an extra point to do, so then you just go over it at the end and you just erase those out because they were so light and they were on your pencil and you're not scared of them. And so there we go, nice and clean, you know, and that's it, because that's how you make, you know, some clean images and you hash them out nice and quick and confident and just get it done, get the idea on paper. So I hope that was helpful. Carry on with the TMA2s. If you still have your problem statements or you're a bit unsure, you know, of course, talk to me. If you start developing prototypes and you need some advice about what materials to use or what kind of things you can think, you know, you're running out of ideas, then just, again, talk to me, show me some of the sketches you've got, and we can talk about, you know, how you can diverge, how you can use all the 3 different questions that you have, or the 3 problem statements that you have to look at different aspects of a design and then bring them all together. So I hope that was helpful, and we will talk soon. Right. See you.